guys around the world and the great beyond, welcome back to another episode of the Guy Schtuff podcast. I am your host, Anthony Claiborne, joined as always by my good friend all the way from Thailand, John Espy, and we are stoked today to have with us John Salter. John, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. How are you guys doing?
Oh, better than I deserve, as Mr. Dave Ramsey says. John, tell our friends a little bit about John.
Well, let's see, man, we're excited to have John here. In case you don't know who the crap John Salter is.
What rock have you been under? That's our first question.
Exactly. So if you've never heard of a little fight organization called Bellator.
We want your man card.
Exactly. Please pull your man card out. Get your – never mind. I'm gonna filter. Caught that one. Never mind. Filter caught it. Yeah, so John is probably the top contender in Bellator fighting not system. What would you call it? Company Bellator fighting what do you call those things? Like UFC, but you don't say Bellator just by itself. Bellator fighting.
Bellator MMA is their legal name.
Okay, so Bellator.
Or Bellator Entertainment.
There you go. That's it. There you go. Bellator Entertainment. There we go.
I think Bellator MMA is what I always see. Bellator Entertainment is what's on my checks.
There you go. Exactly.
And that's what's important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whose name was on that? So John has been with them for quite a while. How many fights you had so far in Bellator? Just Bellator?
Gosh, I think eight or nine.
And your professional fight, what, 16 or 20 professional fights?
21. I have 21 pro.
And so wow. John's been around for a while. He's fought in UFC and Strikeforce when that thing was around. He was in Bellator. What was the other one you fought? Another organization you fought in too?
XFC, the XFC.
XFC, that's it.
Uh-huh.
I knew there was one there. So he's been all over and kicked butt.
And Fight Club.
He's been in a fight. We don't talk about that though. We can't talk about that though.
That's the first rule. I'm sorry, I broke the first rule.
Exactly.
My bad.
No, you messed it up. John's a freaking beast at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You're a second degree.
Yes.
Second degree black belt under Sean Hammond, right?
Yep, Sean Hammonds. Yep.
Sean Hammonds out there in Wilmington, North Carolina, has a gym out there, Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu. If you've never heard of him for some reason on the Bellator fighting side, you've probably seen his YouTube videos where his gym it has some promo videos that go out and do instructional videos where a guy goes flying through the air most times and screams. And so we'll have to link some of that on the page.
Yeah, we will definitely link that stuff in the description.
But John is, like I said, a secondary black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, national wrestling champion. What year did you win that, John? 2007. Also ADCC West Coast champion.
Explain to the uninitiated what ADCC is.
You want me to, or the guy that actually won it?
The guy who won it. Let's go
cool.
with that.
Just want to make sure.
Let's go with the authority.
Okay, I want to make sure.
So the ADCC championship is supposed to be the top 16 guys in the world at each weight class. You have 8 guys that get invited, and 8 guys have to qualify. So I qualified out of the North America. You get 2 qualifiers of each continent. So I qualified out of North America and got to go.
Did you catch that? Qualified the 2 guys in North America. Not, in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Freaking all of North America.
The continent.
One of them. Yeah, the continent.
So basically, this is like, to put it in perspective for my friends who grew up in the 80s, this is everything Jean-Claude Van Damme wishes he was. All right. Okay. I mean, like, I will encourage you to, like, legit go watch ADCC. Like, if you don't do anything but watch the highlights videos, they are freaking awe-inspiring. the level of grappling at these events is just stupid. I mean, it is remarkable. It is like, it just gets your blood flowing just to watch.
But the funny thing was, I didn't really even want to go to the trials. I had a fight I was supposed to have with Alexander Slemenko, and he ended up never signing the contract, so we didn't fight. And my buddy was like, "Oh, you ought to come out to the trials." And it's like, "Yeah, I don't really care to do that." And then Lindsay, my wife, goes, "Well, what do you get if you win?" Like, "Well, you go to Finland to compete in the world you get paid, and then you go to Finland to compete in the world championships." "I want to go to Finland. You're going." And
Another example of how we should listen to our wives, right?
She starts talking to my mom, and my mom was like, "Oh man, Finland, that's gonna be so awesome." I was like, "Well, you guys do realize there's 2 world champions in my weight class that I've got to beat to go." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, it'd be cool." And then I ended up winning it, and I don't think Lindsay's ever gone crazier about something.
Not that you won, but that she got to go to Finland.
She got to go to Finland.
Exactly.
Well, how did that go when you went to Finland?
Well, as far as the trip, we had a great time. Finland, went to Finland, Estonia, and Sweden, just to kind of jump around and see stuff. As far as the tournament, I drew Sanji first round, and it was probably one of the most embarrassing matches of my life. But I'm standing up there, and I'm standing there with DJ Jackson, and we're watching matches go on, and because DJ's competed there before, and I'm kind of trying to like pick his brain on what people are going to do to compete, because I'm watching every match. So the way it works for anybody that doesn't know, you go 5 minutes where it's submission only. There's no points or anything. Then you go 5 minutes where you can score points. And then if you're tied at the end of 5 minutes, you go into an overtime, and as a 5-minute overtime. And every match I was watching, everybody was stalling for 5 minutes. And then for 5 minutes, they would put a little effort in, and then we get to overtime and go hard. And so all the matches, really nothing happened until overtime. I went, okay, well, I guess, I'm waiting for overtime. And so I'm telling myself, like, I got to be ready. This is a 15-minute match. Pace yourself. Try to rest as much as you can in the first 5 minutes. So I go up there with Shanji, and Shanji jumped guard on me, and I pushed him off. And then he stood back up, and he jumped guard again, and that time he got his legs locked. So we hit the ground. I'm like, okay, well, this is fine. And then he tried to hit bump sweep, and I was thinking, okay, don't get hit for stalling. So every time he would try to hit bump sweep me, and when he would go back down, I would act like I was trying to break his guard. And I was even, like, making the face like I was really trying, like, okay. We're doing it like, we're like 3 minutes in. I've used 0 energy. This is perfect. And then he goes to hip bump sweep me again. And it was literally like hip bump sweep, act like I'm breaking. Hip bump sweep, act like I'm breaking. Back and forth like a minute straight. Just that, back and forth. So I'm like, okay, here comes another one. And that time he didn't hip bump sweep me. He threw his hips over and arm barred me. And
oh, man.
I was so relaxed that before I even realized anything happened, my elbow popped.
Oh,
and it was like, it was the most surprising thing ever, because I literally was like, thinking, okay, here comes another one of those little hip bump sweeps, and then also my arm was popping. And my buddy texted me and was like, could you not get your hands locked or anything to slow that down? And man, I was so confident that he wasn't going to go for anything that it never crossed my mind to defend my arm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. But, I mean, if you got to lose the first round of that one, at least it was to that guy,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he set a lot of records.
Yeah, exactly. So, so so just people that don't know, this joker legit. This joker is not your strip mall, taekwondo, kung fu black belt. I'm just saying. This is not the guy.
Shots fired.
Not that same guy. I'm not saying if you want to go do some taekwondo and some kung fu, monkey paw and stuff, that's your business. Your business. Do what you want to do. But this guy ain't going to be there training with you. Saying.
If you want to do what works. Oh, man. Well,
so,
hey, shifting gears, John, I feel like I need to differentiate between John in Thailand and John and here. I mean, all right. So I don't. We'll call you Red Man today since you're wearing that Red Man hat.
Man, I got to sport my Red Man hat. I love my hat, man.
I like the hat.
I get a chance to use it a lot.
So you live in North Carolina. Is this where you grew up, or did you grow up somewhere else and transition here?
I grew up right outside Birmingham, Alabama, and I went to college in Missouri to wrestle, and then lived in Nashville, Tennessee for a while, then California, and then my wife and I ended up here, and we love it here. So this is where we'll be from now on.
Oh yeah, it's a great state for my friends who are not familiar with North Carolina. We kind of got the best of all the worlds. We've got the coast, we've got the mountains. Our big cities are just big enough to not be like sketch. So we get a taste of those things without, having to deal with some of the stuff you deal with at other places. I'm looking at you, Chicago.
Chicago. And
Yeah.
and so Dustin, so John has a gym out in Wilmington, Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu, and get that out of the way right now. So if you can go check him out, if you're in the area, if you like Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to learn Jiu-Jitsu, go out to there. And it's the Port City Authority is the name of the.
So we're Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu inside a Port City Sports Performance.
That's it.
So it's it works out to be really great because you can lift and train, under the same roof.
Awesome.
So it works out well for a lot of our members. And it kind of has played into us being so good competitively because, one thing that a lot of people miss out in jiu-jitsu is lifting, and when you compete a lot, that makes a big difference. So it's worked out really well.
Ooh, and everybody in that gym's a monster. I went up there, walked in, I'm like, God, I was the smallest dude in there, and I'm not a small guy, but I was like, man, these jokers are monsters. And I had to roll with all y'all monsters. It was it was not intimidating. But the thing it wasn't an intimidating environment. You go in some gyms, you get a bunch of meatheads. You don't want to go train in there. But, man, y'all's gym, Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu's gym, was a bunch of freaking monsters. But there's some sweet, nice, amazing guys that just want to train and have fun. So I can't express it enough. Hey, if you're in the North Carolina area, go over there and check out Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu because there's some good guys there. Anyway, sorry, I had to plug you. So
we're right here on the coast, so it's we get a lot of people that travel through. So I think it's really important, to be not only open to people that are traveling and wanting to come in, but also even for me, I've been training for a long, long time. It's intimidating when you go into a gym where you don't know anybody, So that's kind of been my thing with everybody is when we get new people in, go out of your way to make sure they feel excited to be there, But then at the same time is when a black belt is coming through, I expect our blue belts to be smashing. So, that's the other thing is I want you to be nice to everybody. I want them to feel very welcome. But our lower belts better be submitting upper belts when they come from another gym.
I love it.
See, that's the thing. I don't like it's all always intimidating when you go to another gym and you have if you're a white belt, it doesn't. I mean, you're going to get intimidated, but nobody expects anything from you. You're just a white belt. It's great. You have any color on your belt, you can just feel every target just beelining for your back.
Like those lasers the cops use on their guns are on you.
Yeah.
Especially, I can't imagine what it's gonna be like. As a black belt walking to the gym, everybody's gunning for you. It's everybody's gunning for you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of guys that haven't been training long enough to be purple belts, but really athletic guys that train really hard, blue belts. And whenever we have upper belts come through and roll with them, it's always real disappointing for the upper belts because they're just like, how are these guys blue belts? That happened the other day with an upper belt, but anyway, it's I always talk to everybody when they come in because it is such an intimidating thing, especially if you have never trained before and you're walked into a gym, and of course you look around, and whether or not it's the truth or not, you think you're looking around just a bunch of people that are going to tear your head off, and I think some gyms you got guys that want to prove, oh, we can tear your head off, and then you always hope to have the gym where people are welcoming and trying to help everybody out.
And that kind of ties into something we kind of want to touch on is having that warrior mentality and that warrior mindset. especially as a guy, no matter what if you're doing martial arts or not doing martial arts, but having that warrior mentality, but also having a gentle spirit, like a gentle heart, and actually want to be um, um, kind and having that balance of warrior, but also openness and kindness and welcomingness and those kind of things. So as somebody who's a legit stinking killer, how do you have that? How do you balance that that warrior mindset where you go in when the cage locks, it's on. But when you're coming out, man, like you can watch interviews with you, you can watch. You're incredibly humble. Even the last fight where when you fought, I can't remember his name, the cat from Holland.
Van Steenis.
Yeah, even though you come out of that fight and you won that fight, but you were like extremely humble and extremely self-critical, going, man, I didn't put as much. I should have did this, I should have did that, and but you stayed, you kept that that humility through the whole time. How do you do? Like, what's the key to that?
I think one thing is growing up. I played a lot of sports growing up. My dad was always my coach, and he always talked about, there's always somebody out there that's bigger and better. And, just keeping that in mind that no matter what you do, somebody probably could have done it better. And now I'm at a level where the thought of somebody in the world being better than me drives me nuts and kind of hurts, So it's what I get, that not only it drives me all the time to never stop training and never stop working as hard as I can, but at the same time, just like styles make fights, but the Van Steenis fight with him just being so explosive and being on me the whole time, and obviously, like you said, I won the fight, but it was everything I had in me just to survive that third round. Then you kind of look back and go, well, obviously I didn't do everything right to prepare for this, and I feel like, obviously you're going to have fights like that just styles, you can't finish somebody, but I don't ever want to be in a fight again where I can dominate for 2 rounds and then have to survive a third, So you just look back at what you did and you start thinking, well, I obviously didn't do everything the perfect way, so that's on me and I got to fix that.
So there are some obvious, we feel like, spiritual parallels to the world of martial arts and MMA. I think that personally, maybe we're a little biased, but I think grappling itself is close to God's heart. You look at Genesis. When Jacob wrestled the angel, God could have chosen any form, right? But he chose to grapple. So I feel like it's a little close to God's heart. But what lessons, what spiritual lessons, what can we take from the discipline, et cetera, that you feel like can help us grow as men who are trying to pursue Jesus in our day-to-day, from that world that you walk in?
Well, I've got a good friend of mine who's in the UFC, Joe Selecki, for anybody that, has seen him fight, but he's a believer as well. But one thing he says that I think is really, really true and interesting is you can learn pretty much everything you need to know about the way somebody lives their life by the way they grapple. And, you've got your guys that are, arrogant in the room, and they won't go with the people that beat them, but there's a handful of guys that beat them. They just won't go with them. And, those are the guys that are going to be arrogant in life that you really don't want to, spend time with. And you've got all the way to the guys that do everything perfectly technical and everything right and make all the right decisions, and those are people that are very committed to doing all the right things. And you can just kind of go through it. After I say that, now you'll see people in the room like, oh, I kind of see it. The way you grapple is the way you live your life, And it doesn't mean somebody's not good. Like, you might have somebody that's just all they do is go out there and muscle everybody, but they're so strong that they're able to beat most people, and then they're taking shortcuts everywhere, in life. So I think that's kind of interesting. And when he said that, it's like, now I can't unthink it and unsee it,
Yeah, that's pretty true, because I pretty much just lay on people That's pretty much it. I just lay there and do nothing. All right, my bad. Keep going. Keep going with the lesson.
We're not talking about your dating life again, man. John just keeps bringing that into it. But so you hit on something that I think is so important. You know, we're talking to a guy, fellas, who knows what it is to operate at the highest levels of his chosen sport and field. And as good as he is, he drew it out himself. There's always somebody that can beat you. There's disappointments. Matter of fact, you had a fairly big disappointment recently. If it's cool to talk about that, can you just talk to the guys a little bit about maybe that, and then like how just you deal with those disappointments?
Yeah, so recently, for anybody that hasn't been paying attention, Rafael Lovato Jr., who beat me a few years ago, is the Bellator world champ, and he had an issue, and everybody keeps saying it's from fighting, but it's actually a genetic issue with his brain, where he's had to step away from the sport and he can't fight anymore, and so he's vacated that title. And he said it on Joe Rogan, and I think everybody really that's paid attention has said that I should be fighting Masasi for the title, and I thought that's what it was going to be. And then obviously for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just not didn't have the right people in my corner for it or what, but they ended up letting Lima come up from 170 and challenge for the title, which I think, I didn't think was a good idea, because I think Lima still got people he's got to beat down at 170 to really solidify him being the best, in Bellator there. But anyway, so I'm not getting that title. I finally, before I re-signed to Bellator, I made them give me a path to the title. So now it's on me. As long as I do my job, I can get that title shot.
See, that's one of the things that like, we'll kind of go into how you dealt with that disappointment though in a second. But one thing that really, it's been bugging me a lot. I want to say this publicly because I have nobody else going to listen to me. Like
both our listeners are going to hear it.
When you get to hear this one, like your fight with Lovato, like you were putting pressure on him. I mean, it was a good give and take fight. It was a really good fight. And then right at the last round, you just made one small mistake, and he capitalized on it, and he got you, right? There was no like, oh, this was a dominating fight for Lovato. This was a struggle for Lovato, and one mistake was made, and he capitalized. But when I watched him fight Mousy, I can't remember say his name. How you say Mousy? Masasi? I can't remember. Masasi. Anyway, he fought him. Like, he dominated that dude. Like, there was no, like he was not – Masasi wasn't, like, making it hard for him. Like, Lovato just freaking ran through him, I felt. And so, I mean, it was like the natural the natural matchup should be to have you come in and do that fight next, because, I mean, you gave Lovato – I mean, could have very easily been your fight, on that one against him. And so that to me would even add to that disappointment of how well you did against Lovato.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I came out in the first round with Lovato. I kept him backed up against the cage the whole time. I was won the first round, and then the second round I came out, and the first round I chopped at his calf a lot, and the second round when I threw a calf kick, he hit me in the shoulder, and it knocked me down. And then we got into a grappling match, and I kept putting him on his back. And I didn't really do any damage on the ground because he's just so good on the ground. You can't ever actually hold a position long enough to hit him. But I stayed on top the entire round. Every time he popped up, I put him back down. And I guess, I've heard a lot of people tell me, like, oh, I thought you won the first and he won the second. But I was on top the whole second round, so – I guess it just depends on how you look at it. In my mind, I was up 2-0 going into the third. And like you said, he came out with Masasi, just got in his face, put him on his back, held him down. And now Masasi had some shining rounds, where he came out and did a really good job. And but when it mattered, Lovato put him on his back, you know. And there's one round where I saw people trying to say Masasi won because he won the end of the round, but Lovato put him on his back and almost finished him in the first half of the round, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think you know, I obviously, if you just look at that, common sense tells me that in the parts of the fight that really matter, I'm going to go out there and do the same thing to Masasi.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned something, man, that really stuck with me. Two things kind of jumped out at me. One, you mentioned your friend Joe, who's in the UFC, and you mentioned that they've given you a path to the title shot. How important is it as a fighter to have people like Joe around you and people who are coaching and speaking into your life? And then who does that for you? Who's kind of your go-to people? And then we could kind of take a look at that from the spiritual side of things too. But who is your tribe? Who is around you that lock shields with you in this process?
You know, as far as like training partners, probably one of the best training partners I've ever had. He's 3-0 as a pro and really doesn't want to fight anymore. And Jonathan may remember him, but Corey Crumpler, just a phenomenal training partner. And it's almost more beneficial for me that he doesn't really want a big pro career, because he's just always there to help me with anything I need, you know. He's been a blessing, just meeting him and having him be a part of the gym. Who I recently gave him his black belt, just a stud partner. But then having a guy like Joe come in, who Joe is a young guy. He's 26 now, and he's still so hungry. And it's easy, you know, for me, who I've had 21 pro fights. I've fought in every major organization, had a lot of success lately. For me to go, okay, I'm going to coast out, you know, but to have a guy like Joe who's so hungry, who's always pushing me to make sure we're doing more, you know. And Joe and I are at the same weight class, so while we train together a lot, we may not be the perfect training partners for each other, but you know, he's really kind of forced me to change a lot lately. I've always ever since college, because in college I feel like, you know, I learned how to lift and do things like that. And now, you know, for years I've done my own pretty much lifting, you know, and obviously I've had coaches for conditioning, but I've done my own lifting, you know. And then about, I guess about a year ago or a year and a half ago, Joe got me to go. Now we're working with Hudson Rose here in town, who's got several professional athletes in different sports. That's changed a lot. You know, now I've got a coach there making sure that, you know, I'm not getting complacent when it comes to my strength and conditioning. And then the other thing that I think is one of the most significant things you talk about, you know, people that kind of give you that drive and lead you in the right direction. So no matter how good you are, you need somebody to lead you in the right direction when you're competing. And I've started spending so much time at Gym O out in Gastonia, which is outside of Charlotte, with Jeff Jimmo, he's the coach there. You know, if you look it up, the number of guys that he's had in major organizations is just unbelievable, especially for kind of a small town gym. But that, like, Jeff and I, we don't have the same style. If he's planning to fight somebody and I'm planning to fight somebody, it's going to be completely different ways, because he wrestled in college and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he spent, you know, half of his life in Thailand on Muay Thai. So, you know, we're going to have very different styles going into it, but still having a guy who can break fights down and help me prepare so much and lead me in the right direction has been absolutely huge.
So I'll say this real quick, and I'm going to throw it over to you, John. So really, in a sense, guys, when John steps into the cage and the door shuts, even though he looks alone, he's not alone. You know, he's carrying, you know, all these people who are involved with him, who've worked with him, who've been his training partners, who have trained him. He's not walking in there alone. And I think there's an important spiritual principle for us that, you know, we need those people around us. John?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I just wanted to hit on too, is like that idea of having people that you're going to, just like, like I said, John's a top athlete in the world, but he's also going to other people to help keep him sharp, and that's the thing I think in our spiritual walk, like especially if you're a pastor, if you're in ministry, you can have to get this idea of like, oh well, I'm the one that has all the answers, and you don't go to nobody, right? And so, and you can be a very lonely place. But so I would
Amen.
just press people to go, oh man, we gotta have our tribe around us. We gotta have people that are constantly pushing us, like John said, Joe does for him, is pushing him to be better, challenging him, and people need to be challenging us and saying like, how's your walk today? Like, what are you actually doing? You go, oh, I'm good. I read my Bible. Yeah, but do you actually study anything? And like pushing you more to actually be have a closer walk and having a more vibrant spiritual life. I think that's something that I would take away from that, just that connection there.
There's two things you said, bro, that really stuck out. I wrote them down. I like got my little pad over here. I'm writing down. You're saying stuff, and I'm going, "Oh, that's good. That's good." You know what I'm saying? I don't preach right there, but you said, "Stay hungry and do more." I mean, that's huge. Stay hungry, do more. Um, how do you manage? Because I know you get tired. I mean, I know it's got to be tiring to keep the kind of schedule you keep, and that those guys I know are keeping you accountable. You mentioned your wife, and I would imagine she probably plays a very heavy role in supporting you in this endeavor.
Yeah, just about staying hungry and doing more. When I got to college, I was a high school state champ out of Alabama, and half the country, when you tell them now, oh, I didn't know Alabama had wrestling.
I didn't either. I didn't know Alabama had a wrestling team, but I met you.
So,
That's funny.
it's not it's not the most prestigious state in the world to have won a state title out of. And so I get to college and I'm wrestling in Missouri, and number one, we're wrestling at every big wrestling team that you hear about all the time. I'm seeing every weekend at tournaments, so I'm having to deal with them, number one. And number two is everybody on my college team is a state champ from somewhere, and most of them are from Midwest states where it's a bigger deal. So, I kind of told myself, what can I do to set myself apart? I don't want to be just one of the guys that's on the wrestling team. I want to be, number one, I want to be a starter. And then when I'm a starter, I want to be a guy who sets myself apart. There's 10 starters on the team. I don't want to be one of the 10, I want to be the guy that the 10 want to be. But anyway, one thing that I was able to do is to go, okay, I can't make myself more athletic, I can't make myself longer, taller, or a different weight that I would rather be, but I can be the first guy in the weight room and I can be the last guy to leave, right? That's one thing I can affect every day. And so that just became me. Like, well, I'm going to get to the weight room first, and when everybody's done, I'm going to stay and lift longer. And even if I don't really know what I'm doing, it can't hurt me. And that's one thing I think my whole life is that or since then, everybody I wrestle, grapple, fight, talks about how strong I am, and so that's just going to be an
John
attribute.
talked about that.
Yeah, that's something I can affect. And so it's kind of the same way since I've started, since I met my wife, I've been that guy that one thing I can affect is I can be the guy who trains more than everybody else, and so that's something she's had to deal with. We've been together 10 years where this next week is our 8-year anniversary. Wow. So that's something that she's had to put up with, for a long time, is that I'm going to be the guy that's in the gym more than everybody else. So, that's something that's
she's got to be a good woman, man. She's got to be a good woman. I mean, I think that so often, man, guys, I like what you've done, and listening to you, it sounds like you made her a part of what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that takes you away as much as it is, hey, honey, let's go to Finland or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's cool that she's on that journey with you, and I think a lot of guys, and I, don't do that.
Well, and one thing that's been very good is everywhere that we've been, everywhere that I've trained, she's been a part of the gym at some level, so that way we get to spend time at the gym together. So, because if we just spent time at home together, we wouldn't see each other very much, but now she's really, I've had to kick her out of jiu-jitsu so many times. And she's finally just, I've given up on it. And so she trains jiu-jitsu all the time now. So we get to spend a lot of time together that way. So that's really good too. So it becomes something where a lot of this we do together,
And see, I'm telling you, man, if any of y'all guys that are married or have somebody that you're wanting to marry, get them on the mat training with you, because then you can just work out all your frustration without all the arguments and stuff. You can go in and choke the piss out of each other, and it's all better. It's just really good.
Unless you're the coach, and then you get kicked all the time because I'm trying to coach and Lindsay's talking or she's running around. It's a gi day and she's got her gi off because she's too hot, so she doesn't want to train gi. And so that's why I've kicked her out of jiu-jitsu so many times. But I've probably just given up on it. I guess she's going to do jiu-jitsu.
There you go.
That's great.
That's good. One of the things that I've noticed, and we've talked to a guy by the name of Dave Tweedy. Hopefully, I think this episode will actually be after his. But he's a very high-level, accomplished guitarist in the world. Played with some top-level guys, and it's a common theme that I'm seeing between even him and some SEAL Team 6 guys and all and you is this common theme of the working hard. It's not necessarily talent. It's I'm gonna put the work in to get good at this. Is the deciding factor between a lot of high level stuff. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of talent but do nothing with it, and just are lazy or just doesn't want to put in the work. And then you got guys who may have less talent but just work their butt off, and they become the best in the world.
Yeah, no matter what, you can't make up for hard work. I fought. 2 fights ago, I fought one of the most probably just naturally gifted guys that I've ever fought. So fast and so explosive. But, I've put my whole life into doing the stuff nobody wants to do. And I was able to go out there, put him on his back and submit him pretty quick, just because I've put the work in the areas that he didn't. And I think, you've got Joe, again, I was talking about the guy he got his black belt from, John Hassett, is a really funny guy. And his shirts, his jiu-jitsu shirts that he sells out of his gym, on the back it says, "Shut up, no one cares, train harder." And
That's great.
I really like that a lot. And then I remember my college coach, I think the most demoralizing thing he would always say that just make you feel like you're being such a pansy, but he would always say, when you're obviously down, you're hurt, you're not wanting to work hard that day or whatever, he say, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything that can make you really check yourself more and go, man, I am feeling sorry for myself. I got to make up and get over this, And,
but I'm hurt. I really am hurt.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of those things now that you hear that long enough, you just kind of stop doing it. You stop feeling sorry for yourself. And I really like that a lot.
You bring up a good point, man. I think one of these struggles we as men have, if we're 100% honest about it, is we want to blame everybody. You think about sports growing up, the umpire got that call wrong. I want to strike. Maybe you should have swung. You know what I'm saying? All these things. We are almost programmed in American sports to blame somebody else instead of saying, actually, I love it when I see a pro player who something happens and they're like, they're patting their chest. It's on me. That's on me. I'm bad. They're taking responsibility. And what I'm hearing you say is you got to take responsibility for yourself. I feel a little convicted, John. I feel like I need to be in the gym more. But
I agree with you. But be by the gym, man.
But there's a tendency among us guys to do that. And I think, again, going back to the people you have around you, that's why it's so important. Everybody's not.
Hold up.
You can put people around you.
Time. Hold up. You lagging. Okay. Really bad. Hang on.
How about now?
You good now?
Am I good now? All right, I don't know where I was when it
You're
started
talking
lagging,
about
man.
you were talking about having people around you, probably going toward a tribe. Maybe.
All right, yeah,
Right.
I'll just pick that up right there. It's super important, to have those people around you, that tribe, who are going to push you when you start feeling sorry for yourself. And I'm sure there's been moments, even with John, that the enemy tries to creep in, and that tribe around him is so important, to encourage him to just keep doing the stuff. Just keep doing the stuff.
Yeah, and when things don't go well, it's easy to, like you said, you want to blame other people and all kinds of stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's somebody else's fault or not. It's on you. It's your life. Either you're going to lay down and stop, or you're going to keep pushing, and you're the one that's affected by it. And I think I've been very blessed and fortunate, to have the driving factors in my life that I have, as far as, family to push me, parents to push me. And then everywhere that I've lived, I've had great friends and great people around me, and especially here. And you can't do things by yourself. You never see a fighter step into a high level and compete without the right team around them. It's just not going to happen. And there's not a more individual sport than fighting, and you still have to have the right team around you.
You hit on something there that I kind of want to circle back to, dealing with that disappointment and not blaming other people. How do you? We kind of talked about earlier about not getting passed over for the title fight, which everybody says you deserve. How did you deal with that, and did that tribe help you deal with that, or what was your process as dealing with not wanting to get mad and actually re-signing with them? How did that work for you?
Well, obviously there's that big disappointment, and there is the, being mad. And again, like you said, whether or not it's my fault or somebody else's fault that happened, it doesn't really matter, because in the day it's not happening. So I've got to work harder to get there. And Bellator made me, a fantastic offer to re-sign, really kind of better than I was expecting. And my first response was almost, okay, let me sign right away. And then, then I started saying, well, I don't know. I want some guarantees in here,
Yeah.
And finally, the number two in the company called me, talked to me for a little while, and, laid out the path to a title shot. And, after talking to him for a while and getting everything that I wanted, I was happy and ready to re-sign. And I think that's all I can do is just now, like I said, it's on me. I've got the path. If I don't do the things right and I don't get that shot, then there's nobody to blame but me, and I can live with that. For the rest of my life, I don't do what it takes to get the title shot. I can live with that. What I can't live with is I was the number one guy to get it forever and didn't get it.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like I was mad. Like I was like physically mad when I saw that.
He was mad. He's talked about this several times.
I was waiting for it to come out. I was like, oh man, they're gonna announce who. Right when I heard on Joe Rogan that Lovato had vacated, I'm like, oh, here goes John's shot, and I'm like waiting, and then it doesn't happen, and I'm like, I messaged you like the day I learned. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. This sucks so bad, man. I was like physically sad for you. I was like, man, that was just something that was like, man, that hurt my soul. But I can imagine, the disappointment you had, but also that, like you said, that tribe and that coming out, okay, how do I fix it? Not just staying in the past, not just staying in, oh, poor me, but how do I fix this? How do we put on the path where I can get what I want to get accomplished?
Well, I think that's the difference between, being good and being that next level is, rather than being upset, the very first thing you got to do is, okay, number one, I got to get back in the gym today. I'm pissed, but I got to make sure that I'm better than these two guys fighting for it. And then number two is just trying to figure out the best way to get over it and fix it. You can, and sometimes you can't. Fortunately, on this one, I think we got it fixed the best we can. But like you said, it's always about having that support system, because at the end of the day, obviously I fight because I want to be the best fighter in the world, and I want to make a living for me and my family, but at the end of the day, if I don't have any of that, if I never fought, God's put a great wife in my life, friends and family in my life that are fantastic. So, I think, it's an overstated thing, the joy you have when you've got Christ in your life, that everything else is just a bonus. It doesn't matter. So I think that's one thing that has helped me a lot with some of the disappointment, is just everything else is a bonus, and God's enough, and what I've got's enough. And I hope to have more, but that's just something I got to work for and hope for in the future. But right now, what I've got's enough.
And that's something I want to add to this just quick there, Anthony. I'll let you take it over there. I just want to let everybody know, like, we reached out to John last year and was like, hey man, we would love to have you come out and help train, help teach, and those kind of things. And John had a lot of stuff on his plate at that time. He was getting ready for a couple fights, I think, and actually decided to come over and help us out to help fight trafficking, man. And and a large part of that was his heart to say, okay, God, whatever you want, I'll do. Even if that may have put some things on hold, that was his heart, and he was willing to sacrifice some of that time, which is so valuable, especially getting ready for fights and stuff, to come out and help us do what God's called us to do, man. And so I just want to tell everybody just about your heart for Christ, and just kind of brag on you that way, because not a lot of people in your position would have done that, would have left some of the things there to come help out some rinky-dink, idiots in Thailand doing something. So I appreciate you, man.
Well, I wish I could just say, I appreciate it. That was such nice words. But, also had a little bit to do with us wanting to go see Thailand. So,
hey, I was going to leave that out. I was going to leave out Lindsay, like, poking you like, we're going to Thailand.
They call that a win-win situation.
Exactly.
And, so when you just shifting gears, because we're talking a little bit about it briefly before the show, John is not all work, no play. John has another hobby that he likes to enjoy from time to time. John, talk to us a little bit about fishing, man. What's your go-to? What do you enjoy to do with that?
I think obviously fishing's my favorite thing to do. And my whole life, I always, growing up, fishing in lakes and rivers, to me, just fishing in the ocean was the best thing in the world. And, I go to the beach once or twice a year, and if I catch a fish out of the ocean, it was just amazing, because you never know what you're going to pull out, right? You throw a worm or a grub and you're dragging across the bottom of a lake bed, you're going to catch a bass. And so when something bites it, there's no question what it is. In the ocean, you never know what it's going to be till you get out of the water, and that's just
so true.
It was always the coolest thing. And so I know everybody that grows up fishing around the ocean, it's all about trolling and trying to catch the pelagic fish that, the sport fish and everything like that. For me, I don't care if that's what it is, or I'm bottom fishing and catching, grouper or grunts and, different things like that. To me, that's just as much fun as anything, because again, you never know what's coming up till you pull it up. So I may not always be out catching the fish that a lot of people are dying to catch, but to me, it's always a blast, And I got my feelings hurt real bad on Monday. We're in this quarantine, so I can't train all day like I normally do. So I went offshore, and I hung into something that's one of the biggest fish I've hung into for a long, long time, and it broke my line off after fighting it for a little bit. And so not only do I have I'm hurt because I didn't get to catch the fish I wanted to catch, I don't even know what it was, and that's what drives me crazy more than anything.
Yeah.
So you could tell people anything, right?
Exactly.
Like I was like hung into like 350-pound marlin.
Yeah, for all
I'm pretty sure it was jaws.
Yeah, for all I know, that's it was the biggest marlin ever caught. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, like, just talking about just bottom fishing, man. I tell you, some of the hardest fish I've pulled on was freaking groupers, man. Like,
Yeah.
Them jokers that get up in the rocks and just swell up, and you ain't getting that joker out. Like, you got to
Yeah.
sit there and mess with it. And so, yeah, like, there's so much, like I said, there's so much different things to it than just like at, bottom fishing for a catfish. You may get around a log. That's about it.
Yeah.
One of the first times I went offshore when I got here in North Carolina, I didn't have a boat yet. I was with a friend of mine, and he took me offshore, and we anchored up over some rocks, and like I said, we were bottom fishing, and it was just, to me, the best thing ever. And so you look down in the water, and we had probably about 10 sharks swimming under the boat. And, nobody ever wants to catch sharks. People hate it. But to me, I like catching sharks. They are really strong. They pull hard. They're fun, So I start putting bait fish on and dropping down, and I'm catching sharks. And I took one rod, and I put a live fish on it, and I was letting it swim across the top of the water about 30 yards out from the boat, and not even paying attention to it, And I hang into a shark on one rod, and then all of a sudden a mahi, and it was a big bull.
Love them things.
Yeah, which, that's one of the dream fish to catch. I mean, this thing was big, and it jumps out of the water. And why would it jump out of the water, And then I realized it had grabbed that fish and was on that rod. So then I stick my rod that I've got a shark on, I stick it in a rod holder, and I go grab the other one, and I start fighting that mahi, and it jumps again. And I mean, it was, they're such beautiful fish.
They are.
And it ends up getting off the line, and everybody on the boat so disappointed. So I just shove that rod back in the rod holder and go back to fighting my shark, and I reel it in. And the guys, I was on his boat, he's like, I've never seen anybody that didn't care at all. They just lost a mahi as long as you get the shark in.
That's funny, man. Like the biggest fish I ever hung that I lost was a mahi too. I have a picture of it. That's all I have, because we were fishing off the back of the boat, and it was like total pandemonium, right? Everybody was reeling in mahi, and I had him right up to the boat, and it was like old school, man. One of them disposable cameras. I reached in my pocket, I wound it up, and I took a picture. About the time I did, homeboy broke off, and he was gone.
Oh yeah.
All I got is a picture. Oh man, mahi fillets are the bomb, man. You bread them things up in some house autry like we like to do in North Kakalaki.
Man, John, I remember telling about those. You had a buddy that does like professional or commercial spearfishing. You need to take Anthony out with you and him, and like we do a guy stuff, doing guy stuff.
John's just trying to get you to drown me.
I mean, it would make for good podcasting. I'm just saying, it would make for good.
Would.
Yeah. The guy that I was talking about, such a good training partner, Corey. That's his jobs. He's a commercial spear fisherman. He shoots grouper for restaurants and fish houses. But I love, one of my favorite things to do is that they go on a lot of trips. It's 3 days at a time, so I can't be out of the gym that long. But when they go on day trips, I try to go with them, and usually, they'll anchor up, or they'll drop a diver, and they might either anchor up or just circle over whatever reef we're on for a while. And so I just fish while they're doing that. And you're catch some crazy fish out there, the places they are. And that's a lot of fun. I love that. He's taken me down with him one time where I dropped down, or dove with him. And that was awesome. I see how addictive that can be. But
I recently watched that movie Underwater with my wife, so I don't know. It's going to be a little while.
Man, why are you watching that crap, dude? Like Jaws kept me from diving for many a years because I couldn't get in the water, and I would just look out and hear dun 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 every time. And so now, don't watch that crap, man. Go and get in the water.
Yeah. We did talk the other day about how if you see the shark, John and I were just talking off air, if you see the shark in the water with you, that's probably actually a good thing. Because when you don't see him, that's a problem.
You never get attacked by the shark you see. You get attacked.
There's a spiritual illustration there, man. I'm
Exactly.
telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just by way of kind of landing the plane, if you will, for our guys who are listening, if you could, and we've talked about several things, but if you could give them maybe 2 or 3 things that every guy needs to hear and every guy needs to be working at in their life. Obviously, there's a lot of parallels we can draw from martial arts to real life. And if you haven't figured it out on the Guy Stuff podcast, we don't even bother debating whether or not MMA is an acceptable sport for a Christian, because we just believe it is. Okay, we're just done. We're not gonna have that debate. So
Amen.
it just is. If you look at scripture, there's way too much evidence for grappling. Even Paul talks about, boxing, and you see warriors, you see warrior poets in scripture. So we are A-OK with martial arts at Guy Stuff. So that said, just a few points that guys can kind of take away from our chat today.
Well, first of all, I want to kind of hit, and Bracken decided he wants to be a part of this. So
that's the Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu
Nice.
mascot, by the way. That's the picture on his shirt.
Dog.
That's it, man.
this the old man himself right here. But I think it's really interesting what you say about, people who kind of look at should MMA be, a Christian sport? And, I listen to a lot of people, as far as talk radio or podcasts like that are Christians. And a lot of times they kind of ignorance, you hear a lot of ignorance come out of them. And I try not to get mad, because ignorance isn't anybody's fault except you just don't know yet, but say stuff. But when it comes to that, I think people look at a fight as, these guys are out there fighting. But you forget, it's a sport. I'm fighting a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And as soon as it's over, Van Steenis, the guy I fought last, he's probably one of the most emotional fighters I've ever fought. And as soon as the fight was over, he came over and shook my hand, and he said, "You're the best fighter I've ever fought. I've never felt anybody like you." And then he sent me a long message afterwards. Just such a respectful guy, and there is no, like, we hate each other or anything like that. I think that's something people don't understand. And there's a lot of people that could never fathom getting in a fight without being upset, So I get that, but that's something I think is very important for people to know.
One of the things that I just want to just interject there, just a quick thing, like there's a clip online with, I think it was one of the highlights for one of your fights, was coming up with one of the guys there. But anyway, it was like a highlight fight clip, and there's a clip of you kicking that dude in the head, and it just laying him open, and there's this blood covering you. There's blood covering him. It's like something out of freaking Gladiator. I'm telling you, it's one of the most manliest things. I mean, I was like, I got a little emotion with it. It's good. But I mean, I remember talking to you when you were over here after that fight. I mean, you went up to the guy and like, "Hey, man, can I pray for you? Can I pray for you real quick?" Those kind of things. And so, I mean, that's something that regularly happens with you, right?
Yeah, usually I try to pray with everyone after the fight, because, how often do you get a chance to touch somebody's life that you're never going to see again, or may never see again. But, I think the other thing is, God's given me a gift that I don't deserve, and being able to do what I do, and live the life that I'm able to live because of fighting. So I've got to take that opportunity and do that, and I know I may not do it the best way. A lot of people do a really good job standing up in the interview and talking about Christ and everything. But I think a lot of times people don't want to hear you say that right after a win, but if people can see me get down on a knee and pray with someone, hopefully that makes a difference.
Your walk is going to talk louder, bro. I believe that your walk talks.
I hope so. And I'll say my last fight, I did not do that, and that was for no reason except I was so tired. It never crossed my mind, and I don't think I could have prayed out loud with somebody. I had everything that I had to get through the interview, and my last fight, just something I think people think is interesting. So after that fight was over, all I was thinking was, is I can get a couple of lines out with John McCarthy. I can get out of this cage, and if I can make it out of this arena, Corey will carry me the rest of the way to the locker room. So I've got to get just out of the arena. That was my only thought process is I've got to get out of the arena, and Corey's going to carry me the rest of the way. And I come out of the cage, and, that's Lindsay's moment to shine where the camera's on her. And, I can kiss her on camera, and she'll be excited. And she comes running up to me, and I did not care at all. All I could think, I was like, don't you dare jump on me. Don't at me. Let me get out of here. And we get back to the back, and as soon as I step out of the arena, like, Corey, you got to carry me. So he carries me to the locker room, lays me down, and I'm dying. And Lindsay's like, you didn't act like you cared at all to see me. I didn't. I just wanted to.
I didn't want to die. I just wanted to breathe.
Trying to survive. Yeah.
That's great.
That's one time I think you can legitimately be like, woman, get off of me, and not have any kind of repercussions.
And it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, John the Redman Espy, I'm gonna throw it over to you real quick, and then I'll wrap us up, man.
Yeah, no.
That's your new nickname, by the way, John the Redman Espy.
Redman, it is. I like it. It's good. I'll take it. Yeah, man. Just want to thank you so much for coming on with us, man, and just sharing your heart and sharing this is your life, man. Have a conversation with us. That's kind of what we want to do.
Yeah. Is
have conversations with guys who are doing some amazing things, but also their walk with Jesus is what matters to them. And we want to, and that's the whole point of this podcast, to say, how do we become better men that do manly things, that are warriors in our hearts and warriors in our minds and warriors in action, but also we walk with Christ, and that's our love for Christ is more than anything. And so that's one thing, and we want to appreciate you coming on and sharing that a little bit with us, man.
Well, thank you guys. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely, man. You've honored us by coming and spending time with us, and we're gonna link in this video. We'll link links to John Salter's social media stuff and to his gym. So if you're in the Wilmington area, anywhere remotely close, go train. Matter of fact, he has graciously agreed to host me. I'm going to go down. We're working on, we're doing some creative planning for a few segments for our YouTube channel. One of them is doing guy stuff. And I'm going to go down and train with him at the gym and be a nail for everyone. And guys who roll understand that, but and then we're going to spend some time fishing as well, so it'll be a lot of fun. So be looking out for that. A few things you can do for us, gang. One, if you've not joined our Facebook group, go over to Facebook and do that. Follow us on Instagram, and then subscribe to the channel so we can move towards getting notifications. Again, John, you bless us by hanging out with us, man. We really do not take for granted that you gave your time up to be with us. So thanks again for hanging out with us on the Guy Stuff podcast, and we will see you again soon, guys. Peace.